morning. Thank you for joining me this morning. It's great to be in person in Vienna for such a long time. I hope you guys have been doing well during this pandemic.
Kind of. We tried our very best, to get the most out of the new circumstances.
Right. Is the company operating now, or?
Yes, absolutely. We are fully. We never stopped. As an IT company, it's always easy to go, into remote mode.
Right.
So you are lucky in that way. Yeah.
And Ricky, how have you been?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting time after such a long period of mainly virtual conversation, seeing the people again and having inspiring conversation about the future of the mobility.
Right. Well, let's give some background for our audience. Obviously, this CEO speech was something I used to do pre-pandemic. And then when pandemic hit, I decided to make this format as a video format so that we can still share the wisdom of CEOs and visionaries to the audience that are out there. I'm hoping that you can share really the journey of autonomous, which is something very excited about where we are going, we're in the journey. And then about the TTTech, Austrian company that is the spin-off, the Vienna University of Technology. Some years ago, I understand 1998. Today, company has grown into a gigantic 2,300 employees, and they're all around this area, around the university. So I think it'll be great if you can share your journey, as you're building the company for such a long time to where we are today. And then, of course, I would love to get Ricky's view of TTTech as an industry person that give you a perspective around how does TTTech fits into autonomous.
Thank you, Young, and thank you for being here in Vienna with us today. TTTech stands for time-triggered technology. So it really started with the technology, with basic research. And the Europeans are not so used to do spin-offs at that time. That was quite unusual. And to start a spin-off with the technology was quite an endeavor, quite an experience. Today, our vision is advancing safe technologies, improving human lives. So we have basically worked up our way from a technology to a purpose and what we want to achieve with the technology. But the basic idea is always around dependability, real-time safety, how to make our mission-critical systems that we use every day in all our different machines, be it in cars, planes, different industrial machines, how we can make them as dependable and as safe as possible. And how can we use this new approach of deterministic computing that we pioneered with time-triggered architecture, how we can use this to the benefit of mankind.
So basically, is it reasonable to assume, when I look at my Samsung phones, I use Android to run my applications, and I connect with the other devices and connect with other applications. And that is very critical for running my mobile phone. But in the area of mission-critical applications, you need a TTTech software, I guess middleware software or operating system to enable mission-critical and safety. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, the additional assumption was starting with the network. And then when we started with the network, we came to the idea that really what you need is a networked computer system. So a distributed computer system, and there you need to have a management software and orchestration software. We can call it platform, we can call it middleware. We are just trying to find the ways. We developed, especially on the automotive side, we developed this motion-wise software, which is quite similar to Android, but really looks at the safety and the real-time requirements of those different applications coming into the car. Right. So the company developed from a networking company into a platform company where we put compute and networking and storage together in one overarching system.
Great. So it sounds like two keywords here, real-time and safety.
Absolutely.
That seems to be very critical for autonomous. So this may be a good segue, Ricky. First of all, Ricky, good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you.
We actually met first time 5 years ago as an industry expert that I got your opinions regarding the acquisition of Harman for Samsung to get involved. And clearly you were instrumental helping me, helping my management team, and helping Samsung to make that objective. So I really appreciate that. Somehow that connection goes on today. Now we are working with TTTech, and I would love to, given your background, number one, as the head of engineering at Audi, you led many of what I call early autonomous or semi-autonomous projects. You've seen the evolution of autonomous last 15 years. So I think it'd be great if you can give some perspective to the audience about where are we in terms of autonomous, and where are we going with autonomous? And that would be a great segue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jan, for having the opportunity to chat with you and Georg today. Yeah, I still remember very good our first meeting 5 years ago at Geneva Airport. It was the beginning of a very successful mutual journey. I'm a strong believer in the future of the autonomous mobility, and we clearly can say that the automotive and the entire mobility industry is facing a historical chance. When we kicked off the idea to the autonomous 2 years ago with Georg and Stefan out of TTTech Auto, we strongly believe that the way how we think the future of the mobility will get through a fundamental change. The opportunities are huge. Just look to the factor that 90% of all accidents are still going back to human behavior. So saving lives is a huge factor. Avoiding traffic jam is a instrumental part of the mobility in the cities of the future, and also will drastically reduce the environmental pollution. But we all learned in the last couple of years to get to safe autonomous mobility, that's a huge task. You're doing a lot of sports, so I would say it's not even a marathon, it's a triple Hawaii triathlon. Yeah, so
Ironman.
Yeah, a triple Ironman. And with my experience of 30 years in automotive and technology industry, I clearly state it's the biggest challenge and the biggest task this industry has to solve since the invention of the car. And it's a common sense already, no matter what size of the companies, even the big player realized that no company alone can manage this in the right manner. And that's the idea of the autonomous, bringing the brightest minds and ideas together, join the forces, and to solve the biggest challenges of the autonomous mobility. And just to give you a glimpse, developing an autonomous system is by no means the task of an OEM disruptor or tier one. A lot of other technologies like software technology, artificial technology, the semiconductor industry, data, cloud is necessary in this ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And alongside with that, a lot of non-technical aspects, the regulation, the legislation, with thought leaders, with cities, with governments. So the idea, creating this vibrant ecosystem, that is the reason why we kicked off the initiative.
Right. So, I've been involved with autonomous a bit at my prior company, Samsung, as we were working on the projects. And clearly the evolution of great sensors are important, and camera was a great starting point, along with the radars and the lidars that are coming in. Yep. And then being able to combine those data and putting it together, getting the fusion sense out of it, and which is not that easy because you got different images you have to deal with and different distance, different conditions. And then having the right algorithm they can be able to have an AI that can give you predictive analytics. Also, that's difficult because you need a lot of training. And my understanding is to be really trained these things, you need millions and millions and millions of miles to do it. And it requires simulation because you really cannot drive all those things. So just listening to all those, that's a technical side, right? Mm-hmm. There's a non-technical side, which is about, as you mentioned, the regulation that can hamper, as well as probably the liabilities and insurance policies. All those things will have a huge impact on the progress of the autonomous. So I understand the challenges, but Ricky, as a visionary person, when do you think you will see autonomous cars in Vienna?
I think, as I mentioned before, it's not a single event. It's an evolution. And just to emphasize again what you mentioned before with this entire software stack, it makes a lot of sense, and it has a lot of advantages for the partners in their active contribution, because they are on the driver's seat and not standing on the roadside. I think the mobility as a service in the SAE level, we call the level 4 system, in some special operational areas, the operational design areas, the ODDs. I think we will see in the next couple of years some mobility solutions on the road. To give you an example, on dedicated campus, on airports. In some cities, I think, I believe, if you have special roads, you can apply this. I think it will go step by step. Some 25, 26 onwards, and 2030 and then onwards. We all learned in the last couple of years that a precise prediction is not possible. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of challenges to solve.
There's so many variables, isn't there?
Yes.
With environmental variables all the way to human behavior, which is not very predictable, which I'm sure makes it very complicated. Now I'm going to change the subject a little bit back to you. You're as a CEO of a company that you've been involved since 1998, which is a very long time. So as you are building from really the spin out, the startup, to where you are, and I don't call you startup anymore, you are scale up, right? Because you have a scaling over 1,000 employees. And then once you hit IPO, I guess you become a public company. But somewhere in between where you are, could you tell us about how you started and what were some of your experience as a CEO starting a new company?
Absolutely. I mean, when you look back, actually, the company changed so many times, and with every kind of new minimum winning game that you reach, with each new camp that you reach, you have to change your behavior as a CEO and as a co-founder. Yeah. And I was 23 years old when we started the company, so I'm basically an entrepreneur by experience. So I made. We
were the same age when we started a new company.
Yes,
but I didn't do too well. I have to change my job. But you're still doing it.
Yes, I keep doing it, and I really like it. And also thanks for your support, because you're also serving in our board of directors. So very appreciate it. So I think it's very important that you change and that you have the willingness to learn and the willingness to listen. You always can't listen enough, and then to be very clear in your decision making, that everybody understands what the direction is and where you want to go with the company. And to come back to our long relationship with Ricky, who was not only a long-term friend but also a long-term business acquaintance. We had early started the work with Volkswagen Group as a key partner. This was in the year 2000. And so after 2 years, I was suddenly also a managing director of a joint venture with one of the largest companies of the world. And I was suddenly entering the corporate world as well. And every Monday I flew to Ingolstadt to the headquarters of Audi, our shareholder, and we had our management meeting there. So I was really experienced with 25 years not only what it means to build your own team, but how a corporate works. And this understanding of how the corporates work and how the startup world works, this in a way framed me in my very early days. So I do understand, I think, on the thinking of the corporate partners. And for us, in a B2B context, we are only really selling to the biggest industrial companies in the world, be it Boeing or Vestas wind power company or Hyundai in Korea. And we need to be very careful that we understand to build this relationship between a more agile, more nimble organization that we are, and with a strong partner like a corporate partner. And I think that's something that I also learned, I think, as a CEO, how to build those partnerships and also how to retain those partnerships over the time. And these partnerships helped us to spot trends early. So when we worked with Audi, we spotted this trend from automation to autonomy very early. We have been involved in the DARPA Grand Challenge at this time with the red team from CMU. We provide technology there, and then we always hoped that our key partner, Audi, would start this journey from automation to autonomy. And then when Audi did start the journey, they said, okay, we have this great little tech company, TTTech, who is doing a lot of great stuff in aerospace and space. Why don't we use them as our platform partner to building this computer system, this computer platform, the safety foundation for this journey from automation to autonomy. And this really was also a little bit the starting point of the TTTech Auto journey and all our journey leading towards autonomy that we see also now in autonomous happening.
Right. I mean, my understand that your father was also instrumental
Absolutely.
in bringing the key IP that he was working at the university here. And the whole concept of deterministic time enclosure was very critical way of being able to predict reliable way of knowing where the event is going to be. So tell the audience a little bit about that, because I think that IP is very important.
Absolutely.
For part of TTTech platform. And it's how it's applied in different applications.
Yeah, actually, my dad was also in industry. He worked for a big steel company in Austria, and he also helped build the steel plants in Korea, in POSCO. And he was in charge. He was in charge of the processing of this system, so how to build the real-time processing. And he found out that this is not something which is an engineering discipline, but it was more done by chance, the trial and error. And he said there must be a more profound, systematic way how to get to more systematic outcomes. And then he became a professor at TU Berlin and then also here in Vienna. And he really tried to work out how can we build computer systems that when we integrate them, they still behave in the same way as when we develop them independently from each other. So it's about this topic of real-time and integration. So you have different subsystems and you bring them together, then you have a complete system that runs as it has been predicted. And this brought him to this context that you need to have a common understanding of the timing of a system. Because only if you have a common notion of time, you can integrate in real time, which makes sense, but it was a new innovation. So he did a lot of patents in that area. And then he found out, this was then the starting point of TTTech, you need to have a time-triggered network in order to bring all those components together. And then when we later worked a lot in aerospace, we found out that the aerospace industry was going in a similar route with their IMA systems, what they call the integrated modular avionics systems, where they partition computer systems in time, in space, and in processing. So they have basically a complete understanding how to build systems out of components. And that design philosophy, this is what we then brought to our industrial customers and in particular to the automotive market with our MotionWise platform.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the background of your IP and the platform. And obviously that's critical because it's been used by such a large mission critical, let's say industrial-based, customer-based. Ricky, let's go to autonomous a little bit. And clearly, I think what we discussed earlier about autonomous is really around, it's a journey, technically challenging, regulatory hurdle isn't all clear, and it's going to take quite a bit of investment to get to where we want to get to. And there are different definitions of autonomous even. And some definition will be flying airplane. Some definition will be flying car where there's no wheels. Some definitions actually there are some interaction with the drivers. So obviously there are different definitions that are happening. How do you work with, and I know you are trying to rally the ecosystem and industry by organizing an event called Autonomous. And in fact, that's happening tomorrow, my understanding, and we'll be talking there. So tell us about the issues. What are you trying to do address that issues by organizing ecosystem, and then what are you trying to accomplish with that ecosystem?
As I mentioned before, to realize safe autonomous mobility, a lot of disciplines has to come together, and one single player alone cannot manage this successfully. We differentiate between all the technical challenges and the non-technical challenges. And I learned in my time at Audi, in the automotive industry, that the non-technical challenges, especially the regulation, the standardization, and the legislation, is almost the same part as the technical challenges. So that's the reason why in the ecosystem approach we bring all these players together. In the autonomous, in the first kickoff event in 2019, where you supported as well, we had, for example, Audi, the VW group there, BMW, Daimler, semiconductor players, like Renesas, like Samsung, just to mention them. Nvidia was there as well, Infineon, not to forget. I can almost mention all of them because everyone play a major role. And to be honest, it's not easy to kick off such an ecosystem. You have to knock to a lot of doors in the beginning, and you have to bring up convincing arguments. I'm very happy and very proud that in the last 2 years we could expand our global reach drastically. So we have a lot of global supporters now, and also on non-automotive areas, like Airbus, for example. We also have supporters. So bringing all them together, in our understanding, is key for that ecosystem. And for the next years, we focus on the automotive and autonomous mobility, but we are listening to other areas like the aerospace. And as a clear outcome, we founded in June this year the first working group on safety and architecture. As always, when you do great things, the architecture is the first step. And this working group has the target within 1 year to align on the basic principles how such a safe system architecture should look like. They are creating a technical report, and next year in the main event, again in September, it's our clear goal and timeline that this technical report will be published. And then companies can take on that. And the advantage is very clear. It helps avoiding developing in the wrong direction. It helps avoiding country-specific solution. It supports not to get to incompatible solutions. It saves money because you get, through an aligned approach, a much faster go-to-market solution. And in the end of the day, and that is very important, it convinces customers through a globally well-designed safety reference where they can experience everywhere around the globe.
Right. Yeah, whenever there is a system solution that requires many players in industry, whether it's a component, whether it's software, whether it's subsystems or OEMs, it does make sense to talk to each other and making sure there is a consistent approach. Otherwise, it will be very hard to make it very reliable and safe. And that's one of the objectives we are trying to drive to. This common architecture sounds really interesting because it starts with understanding what kind of performance you need and then being able to creating a roadmap to get there. Yeah. And that process probably is a very intense importance because I'm sure every OEM, they're not small, right? Whether it is a companies like Daimler or BMW or Hyundai and Toyota, they have their own ideas. And then you have chip companies, they all have their own domain approach. And then you have software companies in between, whether it's a Microsoft or Google or TTTech, they are all trying to figure out how to navigate that in a consistent way. So it's like holding pretty loud and pretty heavy groups. How do you do that?
You're mentioning a very important aspect, how the autonomous initiative differentiates from other initiatives. By the way, we are a non-profit initiative and we do not competing at all with others. The main differentiator is that other activities discussing and defining the what to do, and autonomous goes one step further in how to do. And last year in 2020, when the pandemic came up, we originally planned to bring a lot of bright minds in person together in various places to get into these detailed blocks. We call that chapter events. And we had to organize this all virtually. And it was a fantastic success. We had in some meetings over 500 experts around the globe. Wow. From various companies. And they all appreciated very much to talk about the how. And believe it or not, it was not that or too difficult to align them to a common understanding on the how. So we are pretty much confident that even if there are different thinking, different approaches, that we get them aligned on a certain level. And as we always say, it's a reference. It's not a must. It's a reference architecture, right. But the company, I would say, would be very wise to follow this reference.
Great. I want to talk more about the architecture and some of the architecture choices that this group is looking into. But before we go there, I want to go back to Georg here and talk about the company, because clearly today company is actually over 20 years old. And I know you were studying with your technical co-founder, Stefan, and together you built the company. So in that journey, tell us about what are some of the lessons you learned from building the company, and just kind of share with the other wannabe CEOs who wants to go from startup to scale up. What's your lessons and what would you like to share with other CEOs?
Thank you. First of all, we were 3 co-founders. My dad.
Oh yeah, forget about your dad.
And myself, and it's kind of interesting because we always have this little family kind of core. And Stefan and I are still, in the management board of the company after nearly 25 years, which shows kind of a founder team. So I really think if you found a company, first of all, you have to look, do you have the right people in your team? And you always told me, always you have to manage a world-class team as the CEO. I think that's very important in every stage of the company. On the other hand, I think most important is to get the market product fit right. So you really have to spot where are the market trends that provides an opening for a new technology and for a new product to really insert into. And I think if everything runs according to normal business, it's very difficult to bite into existing value chains and supply chains. So as a good CEO, you have to spot where's the opening happening that you can come in with a new design approach, a new product, a new technology. And we found out that as a technology company, you can't really do that. You have to build up the way to understand the verticals. You have to build up teams that understands what is the aerospace industry doing, what is the space industry doing, what is the industrial automation. And so we build up different verticals to really understand the markets better and bridge a potential technology application to a potential market need. And sometimes it worked out, like in aerospace, with our core initial idea. And sometimes we had to reinvent ourselves, and we have to create new products or advance our products in order to get into new solutions, in order to meet the market need. And I think as an CEO, you always have to look to make your customers happy and to make your team happy. So they need to be confident, they need to be enthusiastic, excited to work for you and to pay your bills. So I think it's very important that you are not forgetting who is the ultimate purpose of a company, and the ultimate purpose of a company is to make a profit and to generate revenues, and this can only come from great customer relationships. So I would encourage every CEO to really understand where are the pockets of money that he can look for, and then to build a great team to execute on this opportunity. I think these are the essentials. Also, I think what we did very well in TTTech, and I'm very glad also that Ricky is here, we believe that in an industrial context, you always have to live in a network. You are not alone, so we always say network wins sometimes. And if you look at what we try to do with the autonomous, we try to build a knowledge network. So we try to really establish an atmosphere in a pre-competitive, legally safe manner that people can really express their technical ideas and can discuss it. And then as a company, we are thinking, what can we do on the business side out of this knowledge ecosystem? So we recently developed a tool, a formally verified tool, to check level 4 architectures if they fulfill the requirements and the reliabilities of such a complex safety systems. And customers can come to us and say, here's my level 4 reference. We have our level 4 reference, and we can check it with the tool, how it is reliability, and then we can start some business dialogue around this knowledge ecosystem. And I think sometimes if you invest into the network, if you invest into ecosystems, it always comes back, but it's not always directly coming back from the same node, but sometimes it travels across the network. And I think as a good technology CEO, you always try to build these networks, especially in the B2B context, it's essential.
So I think what I summarized this from is really starting with a world-class founder team.
Yes.
And the team that are agile, that are focused on customers.
Exactly.
And really understand the vertical market of customers so that you can add value. And then in the process, you can also create a platform that you can be able to use as a reference so that you don't have to create new one every time you're engaged.
Exactly.
Right? That's kind of the scale-up capabilities and approach. Yeah, thank you very much. What are some of the most difficult times that you had during the last 22 years?
And actually, it's always when you are doing these investments for the next stage, and when you have to jump without knowing if the water is safe to basically land into. Yeah. So as you know, at the moment in TTTech Auto, we are jumping because we really believe the car industry is moving to a software-defined era. The car is becoming a complex software product. I think what we do with MotionWise to provide this safe and real-time foundation will be a key element of the software-defined car. But we need to appear and we need to act that we want to be the leader in this industry. And we have now more than 1,000 engineers just focusing on MotionWise. But we need to appear that we will even be bigger in 5 years, and then we need to act accordingly. And this means that we need to build the next scaling event. So how to and then you always need to make the investments, because before you get the revenues, you have to invest. And this is always, as an European and probably also an Austrian, you have the stomach feeling, because we are learning in school that you always have to bring in a profit. Yeah? We are not having this kind of tech entrepreneur stem, but that you have first to invest, and then the business will come, hopefully. But we always, and this is also how we build TTTech, we always try to make a profit. But then there are these inflection points or these steps where you have to jump, and then you need large partners. And I'm very glad that basically your former employers are still shareholders with TTTech Auto, Audi and Samsung, and that's critical for us. In order to make those jumps, you need to have the strong partnerships to enable you to
every great company requires a long-term partnership and long-term roadmap discussion and investment up front. And it sounds like that's kind of where you are. Samsung saw the potential. I'm sure Audi did too. And we are backing you, giving you some wind behind you so that you can go fast. But of course, whenever an investment in the area of autonomous, which is huge, it requires even bigger risk and bigger opportunities. And that's the where you sweat, because you have to spend money rather than generating the EBITDA positive. And I think today many of Silicon Valley companies act that way. And I don't know the environment in Europe, but I hope you also get the support so that there is a better wind behind you for long-term success, right? Because that's how you build great platforms, because you're thinking, you're going fast, and you have all the ecosystem behind you.
And you need to build the customer engagement teams. So these large corporations, so especially the last 2 years, they expect that you have a local presence. And so they go to market. It's not only about keeping the technology leadership, but also giving the customer experience, that they have the feeling they have a partner, which is basically across the street, that helps them in their problems. And these cars and these vehicles, they are getting very complex software products. And there's very little software competence. So how to build up the right teams at the right spots around the globe, that we can create this customer experience. And I would like to share with you the story about our China joint venture. So we have already about 150 people in Shanghai in our joint venture with SAIC, the largest car maker in China, just to be able to give this customer experience, that they can work with our platform and that there are people that understand the platform. And I think that's something that was difficult in the last 2 years, and we've seen if we had the local presence, it worked well. But we need to have these customer engagement teams all around the world, and that's also something that we will strive to do.
And you have to invest where the market is, and China is becoming like 1/3 of the worldwide market, right? So you cannot ignore that part. Ricky, I want to go back to the architecture discussion earlier, because I know you mentioned earlier that there is a compute safety reference platform the team has been working through during pandemic, which is very interesting, because it really tests a new approach of how we collaborate. Maybe it's easier in some ways because everybody's online and reduce the number of travel. But I think part of it is because you already had a relationship, so that makes it easier to do that. If you have no relationship and trust, I would imagine that's not an easy thing to do. So, but the topic that I have is this, that traditionally, automotive companies, OEMs like Volkswagen or Audi or BMW or Hyundai, they made their own architecture decision. And then they asked tier ones to put it together, like Harman's or Optiv or Conti or Bosch. And then semiconductor suppliers somehow get involved in providing the platforms for tier ones. That was more traditional, but I understand it's changing rapidly as the complexity of algorithm and architecture is becoming much more tied to the computer architecture then it's tied to more around which silicon, which compute, which neural multiprocessing you're using, or even which memory architecture you're using, changes the future of how things are evolved. So there seems to be a little bit of the different force in action. There's an end customer, traditional OEMs, and then there is a traditional semis, and then you got tier ones in between. How do you see the ecosystem working out as you are going this autonomous journey?
The era of software-defined car is a fundamental change in the automotive industry, and you just mentioned that so far, we had a lot of different vertical approaches, and due to the necessary technologies getting in, we are now on the intersection of horizontal technology and platforms, and how to combine it with a former vertical thinking. The one aspect is clear, that due to the megatrends, the connected, the automated, the emission-free or electrified, and the shared, some call it case, we have that pillars which drive all the investments, and the seamless interaction of these four technologies. That's the real disruption, and the major challenge is the software. And the automotive industry changes from a car industry now to realize a real end-to-end user experience, where yours were Georg's, where mine's were ours. Digital life is supported, and the car integrates in that life, and not the other way around. And these software-driven thinking is a major challenge in these companies, and I think the experience and the understanding that it is helpful to use horizontal standards, whether it's the semiconductor technology, whether it's a kind of safety and integration platform like the MotionWise, or whether it's common technology on the cloud part. I think the OEMs, tier ones, they are realizing that it makes a lot of sense in some areas to join the forces. And there is still a lot of room to put on top of these horizontal standards their own flavor to have a very attractive and competitive product.
So you can agree to join, so standardization,
Yes.
and then you do your differentiation to compete. Just like many of all the phone makers in the world using ARM-based architecture.
Exactly.
But yet Qualcomm, Samsung, or others are creating their own version of that to add their own value add.
Yeah. I do not believe in too much different and not compatible full vertical approaches. As you mentioned, the tech industry tells us that this is not the successful one. It's a combination.
So Ricky, what you're saying is the old auto industry, which was vertical, differentiate their own solution, to joining this transition to horizontal industrial change, it must be really hard.
Yeah. It's not in the genes of this industry. I've been in big corporation for 25 years, and automotive industry did not learn to collaborate that much, but they have to. The best example I always take is the telecom and industry. You know, from Samsung and all the players, this is really one of the toughest competition we are seeing in the world. But this industry managed to collaborate, use the 3GPP, who is defining the core technologies for this telecommunication, whether it's 4G, 5G, and then the GSMA to lobby it around the globe. I think thinking in that way is necessary for the automotive industry.
I think you said it right earlier, and I'll go to Georg about one last thing. About where you want to go in the future. But so I think this is interesting about technology game, right? How important it is to collaborate, agreeing on some same specification. Can you imagine if 5G today is done by, the Ericsson, Nokia, Samsung is their own approach? They wouldn't be compatible. So the whole topic is what you said earlier. It's about customer experience. How do we work together to give better customer experience at the right cost structure with a better performance? And I think that should be the focus, not about trying to get your own angle of attack that are optimizing it for you, but maybe it's not good for the overall industry. I mean, I look at, you're right, I look at smartphone, and then when I said, when we acquired Harman, Samsung's view was the future of automotive is like smartphone, standardized architecture with the wheels on it, battery powered, with the sensors, with the AI, and being able to provide a great display that can give you the entertainment and experience. That was the view, and I think that view is still there. But to get to the view, I learned it's actually much tougher and harder because it requires massive change in this industry.
Totally agree.
So Georg, let's talk about your journey. So my last question, this is my last question, is that you've been at this for a long time. And I think that you have a really good view of where the industry is going, where your company is. So when you look at 5 to 10 years out, how do you measure success? Like what do you see coming for the company?
Before I come to this last question, just let me add one thing Ricky said. It was, I think it's very important. It's not only about the software, it's about the systems, how to build a great systems for autonomy. And when we look into the future of the world, and now coming back to your question, is this change to an autonomous world will create a new systems that we will use. And a new system is always a new business opportunity. Our vision as the company is to provide safe mobility with autonomy for everyone. And autonomy having two meanings. You can have the freedom to drive or not to drive, to be driven or to get your package delivered, etc. And I think my vision is that these new systems that we will build will create new value chains, will create new value creation opportunities. And I want to securely and safely embed TTTech in this kind of new value creation that is happening here. And in my opinion, the company can play a key role in being this technology leader in this safety and real-time journey that we will see in having more and more autonomy in many, many different systems. And I want to position TTTech as the front runner in this journey. And I think to your statement, it took longer. Yes, it took longer because the business disruption wasn't there. But I can assure you, Young, when we see the first level 4 point-to-point systems running smoothly and generating revenues, be it by ride-hailing or be it by ride-sharing or be it by any kind of delivery services, we will basically see an immediate shift in the industry to these new system architectures. And then those companies that are prepared, that can deliver, that have solutions, that are certified, that work together in ecosystems, then will be the winners. And then we have a completely new industry. And probably that will be the largest industry of all times. Because if you look at the mobility industry today, and if you look at the logistics industry, if you look how much money we spend for mobility overall, that's really going to shape our economies. And to be in a role, to be in the front seat and see this kind of change coming, and it's coming every year. It's coming closer, and there are many, many baby steps taken. Yeah, it's an Ironman, Ricky. Yeah. I agree with you. It's tough, yeah. But we stayed in the race, and I think also this topic of compute, this horizontalization will help us, and I'm really excited about the future of this company and of this industry.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate both of your time, Ricky, and driving this autonomous as a industrial transformation agenda, going from vertical to horizontal transformation, discussion with the industry ecosystem. And then you are driving your piece of it to enable that horizontal possible by providing the software stacks, and wishing you the best. And of course, I look forward to working with you guys as I always have. Thank you.
And also for all your support. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, the audience. I think this is the end of our next wave series around autonomous and TTTech. Thank you.